Hello Form 5, welcome to another short video, just helping you be completely ready for your English Literature exam on Monday. This is just to help you remember everything that you do know and that you are completely ready for this. Hoping that you've had plenty of rest this weekend as well as revising. This is particularly targeted for Edexcel GCSE English Literature P1, Section A, which is Macbeth, and the little part B, which is our whole text answer. If you are an AQA or another exam board student, your exam might be configured slightly differently to ours, but there will be some useful things in here for you anyway. Okay, so we are thinking about how we can get full marks in our Part B answer. Now, I always say to my students, make sure you understand the question. Before you do anything else on your exam paper, read the question at the end. You can see here for Edexcel students, we have the Part A question, which is based on the extract only, and the Part B question, which is then the whole text. And you don't make reference to the extract in that because you simply won't pick up any marks. You need to be talking about everything else you know about the text, not that particular extract they've given you. If you're AQA, I know that you get one question for the whole text using the extract as a springboard. I don't know about other exam boards, but obviously you can use the ideas here to help you towards that. Now remember, nobody marks this bit of the exam paper, so you can put as many points as you want. As you read that question, make sure against the Part B, you scribble a few ideas down, and then you spend your time on the Part A, on the extract analysis. And while you're doing that, your brain will process the Part B question in the background without you even thinking about it. But make sure you've got some ideas first. And there is a link on this slide to the walkthrough of the Part A if that's something you still need to revise for the exam. So let's have a look at that question properly. In this extract, there is reference to supernatural happenings. Explore the significance of the supernatural elsewhere in the play. Now, this is an exam paper that I created on Thursday for my students to revise from for their final weekend. It's something that's not come up before on the exam paper, but it's a really obvious one, so I'm not sure whether it's likely to ever appear or not, but it's a good thing to have revised anyway. It reminds you rather helpfully that in your answer you must consider how the supernatural is presented. That's reminding you to think about the different ways that it's shown by Shakespeare through the play, and the reasons for the supernatural. Why? Why has Shakespeare put the supernatural into the play? What is being achieved by adding it? And there's a helpful reminder, you must refer to context in your answer. There are 5 marks available for the context. If you don't do it, obviously you limit your mark. Okay, so plan carefully before you begin, and this is where you'll scribble some ideas down before you even look at the extract. Have a think to yourself, where does the idea of supernatural play an important role in the rest of the play? The first thing is to think, what does count as supernatural? For me, obviously, you've got ghosts, you've got the witches and their magic, and then you've got all the unexplainable things that seem to happen. There's voices, there's visions, there's things that happen and events. You've got lots and lots of things across the play that you could go to. I've just made a quick list of all the things that immediately came to mind for me that were very easy to write about. You've got the opening scene and Act 1, Scene 3, when Banquo and Macbeth first meet the witches and receive the prophecies. You've got Lady Macbeth calling the spirits to her in Act 1, Scene 5 with her famous "Unsex me here" speech. You've got Macbeth hallucinating the dagger that takes him to King Duncan just before the murder. You've got after the murder. Obviously, in our extract, we've got the immediate aftermath with the voices, so we're not going to talk about that. But you've got the old man in the final scene of Act 2 recounting all the weird things that have happened in the night and all the bad omens. You've got the banquet scene with the ghost of Banquo. That's an absolute banger for this question. Then you've got Macbeth's revisit to the witches and the new set of prophecies. And if you wanted to, you've also got Lady Macbeth sleepwalking, which could be considered as supernatural because people often had a belief that sleepwalkers were untroubled spirits who were trying to clear their conscience. Okay, now think, why is it an important theme? Why is it really important at those points in the play? What is Shakespeare using this theme for at this point? What does it add to the story? Particularly think the opening of Act 1 and when we first hear the prophecies and then Lady Macbeth. How does the supernatural play an important part of developing the characters and the plot through the whole of that. Maybe pause the video and make a few notes for yourself now to just think about that and drag out everything that you know about this text, and then think about 2 or 3 other places in the play that are obvious for you and make a few notes. Okay, that important context points. Now, you need to make sure that you are sprinkling context all through. Some really obvious ones for Act 1, common beliefs about witches and magic in Shakespeare's time. You'll all have learnt about those. King James himself, with his horrified fascination with magic. He's both paranoid about witches, but also fascinated by them. How would Lady Macbeth's actions be interpreted, and maybe term her as the 4th witch in the play, maybe, with the way that she calls those spirits down. And then you've got the conflict between the Christian teachings and the supernatural. Now, thank you, Mr. Wendon, who's a head teacher at a school in Cornwall, that he gave us this absolute gem when I worked with him some years back. Treat context like spice. Sprinkle a little bit of it over the whole of your essay. Don't dump a huge pile in the corner and expect it to season the entire thing. A bit like if you're making a curry. You wouldn't just put a teaspoon of spice into one tiny bit of the pan. You would stir it carefully through the whole thing. So that's how you're going to use the context. Don't just dump it in there. Use it carefully all the way through. So make sure you know the demands of the question. I've only shown you band 3 and above here because we're all targeting band 3 and above to get those grade 4s plus. So you can see straight away you need to have a personal response that kicks in at band 3. You've got to be showing your ideas and what do you really think, and you have to convince us as we mark your essay that you are not just trotting out ideas that you've read in a case notes study somewhere or you've heard your teacher say in class. You've taken these ideas on board, you've thought about them yourself, and you are coming up with your own ideas. It is okay for you to have your own ideas, and I'm always encouraging my students to say, well, what do you think? Don't tell me or ask me if you're right. Tell me what your ideas are. You have to develop a critical style. That means you have to slightly detach yourself from the text, and you have to be almost judging it a little bit and saying, what does it achieve? And you have to be interpreting it yourself. What does it mean? How's it making you think and feel? And then you are supporting that from throughout the text with lots of quotes or references to the text, and you've got good sound comment on the context, and it's relevant to what you are saying. Let's have a closer look at the band 5 to get those full marks. You've got an assured personal response. Now that means as I'm marking your work, I'm thinking, gosh, this student really believes what they're saying and really knows this story and understands it. A high level of engagement with the text, that means you've gone all over the text and you show you clearly know that from beginning to end. You haven't just learnt 3 or 4 key scenes that your teacher said were really important and you don't really know what happens in the rest of the story. You know the whole thing inside out. You just can't get into band 5 if you don't convince me that you know what happens in this story. You've got a critical style. That means it's not sort of stock phrases. It's coming from you and you are thinking and really considering what the impact of that text is. How does it make people think? How does it make them feel? And it's got a maturity. Perceptive means you're really seeing into it and understanding it with your interpretation. Discerning references. Now that means that you have chosen the absolute best words and you've used the fewest of them in the right places to support what you're saying. You haven't whacked in a 15 or 20 word reference. You've actually just put 2 or 3 words that are the most important bit, and they're integrated within your essay rather than being a quote that shows this is bump, big quote, this quote shows this because. That is not integrated properly. That is a band 3 response. To get band 5, you just use the quote instead of your own words to back up your ideas. And then an excellent understanding of context. You haven't just trotted out all the boring, ordinary stuff people in Shakespeare's time believed in witchcraft and magic and then moved on. You've actually thought about some really good context that's going to help to heighten what you are saying, and you've used that to improve what you've said. We'll see some examples of that in a minute. Okay, so using a good essay structure is always an excellent plan. A really clear introduction, make your point clear, answer the question in 1 or 2 sentences. Then make your first point about the supernatural and make sure you've said, why is the supernatural important to the plot and character development? What's it adding to that story? And then think, how is the context helping us to understand its impact? Repeat that for 2 or more ideas, depending on how much time you've got. You're always better to develop fewer points fully than say more. The classic one is the inspector calls question. If you get something about, for example, social class or generations or responsibility, you try to mention every single character in the play, and then you say not very much about all of them. Whereas if you were to focus on just 2 or 3 characters and really develop your thinking about them, you would make a much better, deeper essay. We're looking for depth, not masses of coverage. So pick your 3 best points that you know the most about and you can argue the most convincingly, and you really have owned your argument and it's yours. And then in your conclusion, restate your overall point and answer that question again. Okay, so here's a good introduction and a good concluding argument. So the introduction. Throughout the play, the theme of the supernatural is a crucial part of the plot, and that is where that assured response is coming in, calling it a crucial part of the plot. It could be argued the entire play is steeped in the supernatural, so that's quite a mature and perceptive argument. From the characters of the 3 weird sisters to hallucinations, bodiless voices, sleepwalking and magic prophecies, every act contains multiple references to supernatural events. I've immediately said to my examiner, I have my own ideas, I'm really confident about them, and boy do I know this text really well, look what I can pick out for you. And in my conclusion, nice and clear at the end, restating my argument. Overall, throughout the play, repeated supernatural occurrences and the appearance of both witches and their prophetic spirits make clear the supernatural is a central part of the plot, driving much of the plot and character development. Given that the audience at the time would have believed in and feared witches and the supernatural, and today we still enjoy watching magic on stage, Shakespeare, and I'm covering my own argument up there, speaks firmly to his audience both then and now with their inclusion in the play. So again, a really confident, really assured argument that's very clear, very perceptive and very mature. Just in your introduction, your conclusion, you have convinced your marker to think about band 5 with that kind of wording. Okay, so here is a potential paragraph. This could be a good first point about the opening of the play. And you can see in the bubbles down the side there, we've got critical assured comment about the opening, perceptive interpretations with support integrated into it, those small quotes in there in the yellow, useful pieces of context that are integrated into the main argument, and ending with another critical assured comment. Just pause the video and have a read of that now. I'm not going to read it out to you, or you could screenshot that and take your time to have a look through it. And a different point from later on in this essay. Again, you've got a really assured, critical, personal response. Just look at that opening. Arguably, the key supernatural scene in the play is the central one of the banquet. Now, that does 2 things. One, that is making clear you have a really personal response and your own ideas, your own interpretations of this, because you're saying, arguably, it's a key scene. And you're also pointing out how well you know this play by calling it the central one. The banquet scene right in the middle of the play. And then you haven't recounted the scene, you've simply said Banquo goes to Piers and terrifies Macbeth. Just a quick summary of what happens. So it's really assured, it's really critical, and it's very personal. Again, you can see in the yellow there some really useful little bits of quotation or references to the text that are just sprinkled in there. And the context is integrated and used to form an argument. So at the end there, demonstrating the commonly held belief that the souls of those murdered could not go to heaven before they'd avenged their deaths, Banquo's ghost not only sets the seal on the link between Macbeth and the supernatural, but his appearance, causing Macbeth to speak of his terrible crimes, confirms for all the lords that Macbeth has not only done dreadful things, and that his conscience is pricking him, that he cannot control his feelings. Another sign of supernatural, as Macbeth's own mind seems to betray him. So that context there is actually being used to make the point. And that's how we use context really well, just using it as a springboard for our ideas, showing that you have an excellent understanding of the link between context and the text. Okay, just to remind you again, that mark scheme for your level 5, and the key words assured. As I'm marking it, I'm thinking, gosh, this student knows their stuff. That it's a personal response, it's your ideas and not classic, boring, ordinary stuff that everybody tells me. It's a critical style, and it's mature, and it's perceptive. You're really seeing things, really looking into that text and seeing it, discerning references. So you've chosen the best, fewest words, and they're integrated into your ideas. And above all, you're convincing me. You're convincing me that you know what you're talking about, that your context is used really well, and you have an excellent understanding. So as I'm reading it, I just feel like your essay is confident, assured, perceptive, and convincing. It's going into band 5. And here's my final thought, that lovely quote that we found on Thursday in form. I'm ready and prepared and looking forward to the chance to show what I know. Go into that exam on Monday for all of you across the country going into English Literature Paper 1 on Monday. Show what you know. God bless and good luck.